Hello everybody, my name is RagingRaptor and I welcome you to a new World of Tanks video. And today we'll have a look at the Chinese Tankdestroyer line. And basically what I wanted to do is make a grind review, talking about all tanks in this line and, well, give you my breakdown on those tanks because, well, I played all of them. And well, I played most of them to quite good succession. I even did a grind review for the tier 8 tank, so if you want you can check the link in the description below. But otherwise, I also have to say many of those replays, except for the tier 10 one, are not mine because the plays or the gameplays I have are right now corrupted because Herpader Wargaming as soon makes an update. The replay files won't work anymore, which is kind of frustrating. Oh well, then we'll have a short look at how many battles I needed to finish this line. And in total, those are 333 games. 3 on the tier 2, 9 on the tier 3, 5 on the tier 4, 23 on the tier 5, 27 on the tier 6, 38 on the tier 7, 105 on the tier 8, 133 on the tier 9. And I'll have to point out that till the tier 7 tank, or with the tier 7 tank, I have free speed to make the tanks elite. On the tier 8 and the tier 9 vehicle, I decided to only free experience the tracks. So I can mount modules like tank gun rammer, optics, tank gun rammer, vents, and binocular telescope, except for the tier 10 tank where I'm running, instead of binocular telescope, optics, because it has really good view range. So, well then, let's start with the tier 2 vehicle. And well, in 3 games, a 33% win chance, it was not the best to be honest, and well, it was a funky tank after all. And what is it in the end? In the end, it is the same tank as the Russian tier 2 tank destroyer, the T-26AT, as far as I remember correctly from the name, the AT1, excuse me. The only big difference is that it has a different gun, a different top gun, which is marginally better when it comes to penetration and accuracy wise, but it loses a bit out of damage. Overall, the tank is rather mobile-ish, it's rather punching, and it's a good sniper after all. 0.38 accuracy on a tier 2 tank is really darn good. But oh well. You need roughly 1000 experience, 1006 experience to get the tier 3 tank, and many people dislike the tier 3 tank. Why exactly? Because not only is it rather fast, it's not like maneuverable at all. Like turning with this tank takes really quite some time, at least from my experience. But it has a really great gun variety. 2 to be precise, and I needed 9 games at a 67% win rate to finish this tank off. The first gun is simply amazing when it comes to penetrating stuff. It has 112 stock penetration and 189 with APCR, meaning even the fearsome Panzer IIJ, which is like one of the most broken tanks in the game, because it is, and that's why it's only sold in €100 bundles, because Herpader Wargaming needs to make money, has no chance against this tank because it is stealthy, it is again fast enough to relocate, and it's simply a powerful gun. It's not that accurate though, but on the other hand it has quite the good secondary gun. A tier 5 gun, 85mm of penetration, 106 with premium shells with APCR, but 115 damage, and it's more accurate and has a faster aim time. So here I do like the change. You can decide, do you want a really nice penetrating gun with less damage but, well, ridiculous penetration values, or you take the one with better damage, better accuracy, worse reload time and worse penetration. And honestly in the end I went for the 76mm CIS3, the more damaging gun, because hey, most of the time you won't need to have such good penetration anyway. So well, after that you get to the tier 4 vehicle, which, well, you will have to have 3100 experience. And well, what do we have? 5 games, all of them are wins, and I do have to say that I simply love the tank. With its top gun, it simply feels amazing. 128mm of penetration, 172 with heat, I think it is. No, APCR, excuse me, is simply phenomenal. You give that a really good DPM, 160 damage per shot, and you are a monster. Yes, you do not pose a big threat when it comes to armor wise, but it is quite stealthy. And simply that gun makes this tank wonderful. I had a lot of fun with this tank, and well, yes, it was a great stats padder, if you want to call it like that. I certainly suggest to you to obviously get the top gun. It's not that big of a deal, it's not that expensive, but it works. Well, 5,200 is expensive, excuse me by that, but it is a lot of fun to do. Also, I need to note that all of those tanks will need tracks to play played efficiently. Either you won't have enough weight for the gun or for modules, and most of the time for low tier tanks I ran the tank gun rammer and a camo net and binocular telescope. That makes those tanks quite well for spotting and for being stealthy. Next up, we come to the tank which is in my opinion the lacklusterest, or the most lackluster tank in the whole tree, the 60G FT, the tier 5 tank, after 10,300 experience on the tier 4 tank. It has the same tank gun as a tier 4 tank, but it will get upgraded to a 145mm penetration and 180 damage gun. I do have to say in the replay I do not support that a lot of gold spam, but well, that is for the player. Again, I got those replays from the website, what replays, so I don't know the person which played them, I just took them. Again, my file were corrupted in the end. The good thing about the 60G FT is that it is rather fast. That makes this tank somewhat playable, but on the other hand, it has no armor and it is huge. You lose 8% camouflage rating compared to this tier 4 tank. But in return you have quite the good DPM. But then again, I really did not enjoy that tank. It just simply felt quite lackluster. 23 games, still a 70% win chance. And well, yeah, I still didn't felt the tank was so good. But then, after you grinded 20,350 experience, plus another 15,700, yes, this tank tree line is quite the XP drain, and I talked about this a lot already, you get the tier 6 vehicle. And the tier 6 vehicle was in my opinion a hidden gem, especially with the top gun. It has 181mm of penetration, 241 with APCR and 250 alpha damage. Plus it's fairly accurate, has a fairly good DPM, and it's phenomenal fast when you put in the 5,000 experience for the top engine, which I strongly recommend. This tank is a light tank with a TD chassis, meaning you can't really turn your turret, but oh lord and behold, this tank was fun to play in my opinion. I have a lot of, I do have I think 1 or 2 replays on the channel, which, well, I will show you in the description below, I guess, where I played this tank, even played it in stream, and it simply felt wonderful. With binocular telescope, you will have 445 meters plus view range. You have great camouflage, and you simply can wreck some faces. Sadly enough, after 27 games, I only had a 41% win chance. Even though I tried so much, I didn't got this tank to work properly for me, even though I enjoyed this vehicle. I sincerely liked to play this vehicle. And yeah, it's kind of sad that those stats really screw it a little bit up. Because again, it was a fun tank to play in my opinion. Also, I guess what is standing against me a little bit is the low damage per game, sadly only 996 compared to the 818 on the tier 5 vehicle. Well, after that you will get to the tier 7 vehicle. The last tank I decided to free XP the modules, the last tank, and the first tank which I decided to get instead of what's it called, automatic fire extinguisher, quality oil, giving me those spicy 5% more boost or more horsepower. What you also need to get is 50,400 experience, which is quite a lot already. But now here comes the T-34-2G FT, and well, stock it has the same gun. It gets upgraded to another gun like the WZ-111. It has a little bit more of penetration and, well, doesn't really make things much better. But then, if you finally invested quite some money or free experience or time, you will get the top gun, which is a 100mm D25TG FT. And I guess many people know the SU-122-44, and many people will compare this tank to this tank, but I have to beg to differ. This tank plays quite differently because of several reasons. It's not as inaccurate as SU-122-44, it is not as good armored as the SU-122-44, and it has not as good as a DPM, but oh my lord, did I had fun playing this tank. This tank's gun has 192mm of penetration, which is already a really good value for such a huge gun. 250 with heat, making it really good against tier 8 and 9 opponents. A decent enough DPM, I think it was 8 seconds reload time, and well, this gives it a DPM of around 1,800, I think, 1,300 maybe, and I had so much fun playing this tank, like legit. I only, in quotation marks, needed 38 games and had a 74% win rate on this tank. I carried and wrecked some faces with this tank. Also, it is now the time where I started to use boosters or more boosters every time I just went on stream, put on those boosters, double experience, and simply grind through those tanks to make it a little bit more quicker. Hence, I have not a lot games on those tanks in general. But I have to say, this tank is probably the best tank in the whole line. I had so much fun playing this tank, and the gun is simply wonderful. The only drawback on this tank is that it sadly is not that fast as you would think it is. It's not a T-34-2, it's a TD which has a really bad engine, hence I started to use quality oil. And you can also see in my stats that not only I have a 74% win chance, I have a 1990 damage per game. And yes, that's a lot. And funny enough, the next tank, yes, I had worse in the beginning, much worse in the beginning. Which is actually super sad if you think about it. But then again, after you grind through 17,500 and 27,200, you get the top gun, and you should have great pleasure with this tank. Then there will be another 76,000 experience till you get the tier 8 vehicle. And I already talked about this tank more thoroughly in another video, in a grind review. And well, it has 3 gun options. It has a ridiculous DPM gun, which is the top gun of the T-34-2, and it's the stock gun of this tank. It has an IS-4 gun with really bad DPM, and then it has a Jack Tiger gun on tier 8. And I have to say, as soon as you have grinded through almost 100,000 experience, what am I kidding, 120,000 almost, you have this beast of a gun, and this tank turns from bad to mediocre to wonderful. Legit, this top gun is simply amazing, and I have to say the T-34-2G FT is the hidden gem of the stream, but the WZ-101 FT simply is wonderful, and it makes so much fun to play when you have with the top gun. Suddenly I had no problems to grind the second mark of excellence, and I was actually pretty darn close, I think, to the third one. And if I recall correctly, on this tank I was in the top 3 to top 4 of the people which played this tank in the Hall of Fame, which, well, yeah, after grinding stock painfully, getting the second gun painfully, you finally have this beast of a gun, and suddenly everything went amazing. And I do have to say, maybe spare some free experience, or maybe just like use take your brain onto the off position and just try to play through this tank. Try to do as much damage as possible till you have the middle damage gun, the middle gun. Then you try to do the same thing till you have the big gun, and the big gun is simply wonderful. 105 games were needed, 63% win chance, 89.86% on the mark of excellence. And this is also the first tank which I got the marks of excellence on the whole tree. The other ones were simply not, I didn't have enough games to get the 1 mark of excellence. And lastly, after you wasted another 100,000 experience, which is again a lot, you will get a tier 9 vehicle. 116,000, excuse me. The tier 9 vehicle is quite an oddball because it takes quite the turn. Beforehand you had decent stock grinds to bad stock grinds with the tier 8 vehicle, and suddenly you have the check tiger gun and nothing else. The first thing you will get are the tracks to mount some modules, and then you will straight go for the top gun, because by that point you will have the top engine and it will be from the tier 8 vehicle. Because you want to get a little bit more mobile. Those tanks are not mobile. You are driving around 30 kilometers per hour, which is decent enough, but it could be better, and it definitely feels those tanks could drive better. But then on tier 9 you have something like an Aisho, which is supercharged. And with supercharged, I mean it has supercharged armor. But don't get me wrong, the gun mantlet on both guns is still kind of bad. Plus, you only have 80mm of side armor. Comparing it to the new Object 268 variant 4, you will be struck. Those flanks on the side of the front, which are angled in quite a sharp angle, are on those tanks on the tier 9 and the tier 10 vehicle only 80mm thick, making them weak spots as soon as you angle them slightly. While on the new upcoming tier 10 tank destroyer of the Russian branch, they won't be. And I have to say, the tier 9 tank, after some while I had to get used to it. First, the stock gun felt wonderful, really. And then suddenly you have this like check tiger like accuracy. You have exactly the same DPM as with the 152mm gun, but you lose on accuracy and aim time, but you gain a lot in the penetration sector. You bump your penetration from 271 to 290 and from 340 heat to 395, which is bonkers. It's so good. It's really a great value. But sadly enough, you lose a lot in accuracy and aim time, and this makes this tank feel a little bit wonky when you first use it, because you come from this sniper playstyle from the tier 8 and the tier 9 vehicle, and suddenly you should try to brawl a little bit more, but your armor is not really up to the task. Until you kind of start to figure out how to roughly brawl with this tank, use your hull down, use your -6 degrees gun depression, and then you suddenly start to have some fun with this gun, because it feels like a better-ish version of the Object 704. You are not as fast, you're not as stealthy, but you are much more armored and you can go much deeper or much more ham. And so, well, this is then the tier 9 vehicle, which I also get the second mark of excellence on, being in the top 5 in the Hall of Fame. And lastly, after 133 battles, 60% win chance, I grinded all the necessary experience, 231,000, and we got it. We got the WZ-113G FT. And I have to say, this tank is a big oddball, and I really think that Wargaming, just because of this tank, changed Object 268's shell speed to introduce that tank. Because this tank's shell speed is atrocious, like really, really bad, and it makes sniping super hard. And I talked about this in my FV215B183 video, where I said, well, it is quite hard to really play this tank to perfection when it comes to sniping, because your shells are so slow and it's super hard to hit targets, as your shells tend to drop down from a little bit higher. This is also having some plus, because you are making angled armor worse by the minute, because the further away they are from a higher angle, the shell will hit the armor. And this is actually quite a good thing sometimes to have. You can even lop over smaller obstacles. Still, I play this tank with quality oil, and I have to say, when you start to figure out where those 5 degrees, where those positions are where you can hide your super weak lower hull armor, you will have to start get some fun with this tank. It feels like an Object 268, but better. It feels like an Object 263, but slower, but better armored. Still again, it's the same with the Object 263. As soon as somebody decides to spam you with heat or with premium shells, your armor will be neglected. It won't be useful anymore anyway. Still, it can bounce some shells because it is still steeply sloped. The frontal slope part is able to bounce some shells. I don't really want to go too deep into the WZ-113G FT, as I want to know if you guys want to hear a fully detailed review about this tank, because I would be totally up to the task to do that for you guys. Overall, this should round up my experience, my grind review of the Chinese Techtree. Again, till tier 7, I free XP'd every single module, and after that, well, I did the grinds. I used on most of those tanks my experience boosts because I have way too many of them, to be honest. Still have around 32 to 100 depending on what they are. So yeah, it's still a lot of fun to do when you have those boosts. I really recommend you to use those boosts. They don't run away, they don't expire. So yeah, what do you guys thought about this video? Did you like it? Let me know in the comment section below, and I will probably do a grind review of the upcoming French heavy tanks when they are out and I'm starting to grind through them. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. Talk to you all later and good luck on the battlefield.